In today's video, we're going to be making the case for Brock Bowers and whether or not the New Orleans Saints should draft the Georgia tight end. And on top of that, we're also going to get to hear what New Orleans Saints fans are thinking about this selection at number 14 overall. But before we dive all into this, go into a deep dive of the player, the prospect, and his fit in the black and gold. Would you draft Brock Bowers at number 14 overall? Just give me a D for draft or a P for pass. I need you to be Mickey Loomis right now. All right, so let's dive into the draft profile and who the player is. So Brock Bowers, in case you don't know, in case you've been living under a rock for the last little bit of time, 6'3", 243 pounds. He can play all over on the offensive side of the ball. He lined up in the slot a lot last year for the Bulldogs. He also lined up a good amount outside, and on top of that, he was in line as well, almost 50% of his snaps. And here's the thing about this player. He doesn't move like a tight end. He is not a tight end. He is a football player that is an offensive weapon. Sound kind of familiar. But on top of that, he has running back-like vision, and he can really, really be deadly after the catch. And he even broke 18 tackles, forced 18 missed tackles last year for Georgia. Now, in terms of the production for the player, 56 total receptions, 714 yards. He had an average of 13 yards per catch, 12.8 to be exact. 6 touchdowns, only had 3 drops last year. But on top of that, in his career, he's been doing this for a long time. Like last year's production was good, but that was a down year for Brock Bowers. In 2022, he absolutely lit it up, decided he wanted to come back to the college football world to have another year with the Bulldogs, try and go chase another national championship. And I do know that Dennis Allen and the New Orleans Saints are interested in a player like Brock Bowers. And I think that it is specifically Brock Bowers that they're interested in. But I could also see a world where a Jatavion Sanders or one of these 3rd, 4th round tight ends could be an option as well. But let's take a look at what Dennis Allen said not too long ago when talking to media. I feel like the addition of Cedric Wilson gives a little bit of a veteran presence, somebody that's kind of been there and done that. So I thought that was a good piece. But I certainly think that that's an area in terms of a pass catcher, not necessarily a wide receiver, but a pass catcher is something that we will continue to look at. Now, in terms of some places that Brock Bowers could end up, the odds makers think that the New Orleans Saints are an option, but feels like he could be a New York Jet, and I actually do agree with the odds makers in this situation. He's plus 200 to be a Jet, plus 350 to be a Colt, plus 700 to join Harbaugh with the Chargers and Justin Herbert. And on top of that, the New Orleans Saints are at plus 1,000 odds. The Dolphins at plus 1,500 odds is an interesting idea too. You know, he lines up with Mike McDaniel's offense. That would be pretty electric. But, you know, maybe you get flash of that with the Saints offense. And I want to discuss Brock Bowers specifically as a Saints draft target and why he would fit with New Orleans. So he's not just a tight end. He is a player that is a weapon. I mean, we love what Taysom Hill has been able to do for the Saints. I'm not saying he's going to be a quarterback. He's not going to be throwing the ball. But in terms of a guy who can run the ball, who can also catch the ball and just be an offensive playmaker, Brock Bowers is a really, really good player to do just that. And if you think about it, Clint Kubiak could try and recreate what he did with George Kittle in the 49ers with the Brock Bowers, as they get a lot of pro comps Brock Bowers gets a lot of pro comps to George Kittle. And on top of that, he would upgrade this tight end room that does have Juwan Johnson, that does have Foster Moreau, because he is a generational talent. And that's a word that gets thrown around way too loosely, but Brock Bowers truly is that kind of talent. And he's a great route runner and a yak machine. But here's the problem that we find ourselves in. Like, this is the situation that the Saints have created by not addressing offense or not having quality offensive line picks, by not bringing in a free agent this offseason. So you can go with Derek Carr as your quarterback, obviously, and you can draft Fashanu and an offensive lineman, and you could throw the ball to anybody. You know, who could it be? Or you could go get anybody as an offensive lineman. You could draft Brock Bowers, but Derek Carr gets sacked. So, like, this is the problem. You're either in the first round protecting Derek Carr so he can throw the ball to somebody, or you're adding another offensive weapon to make the offense so much more explosive, but giving Carr no time to get rid of the ball. So I want to ask you this question. What position should New Orleans draft in round 1? Do you think it should be offensive lineman? Do you think it should be tight end? Edge rusher is also a very popular pick amongst Saints fans. So I just want you guys to let me know your thoughts in the comment section. And really quick reminder, I encourage you to subscribe for Saints videos. We also go live throughout the offseason. We're going to be live later this Wednesday at 4 p.m. Central Time. So join us then. But we give you guys daily coverage, news, rumors, draft stuff, and all year long, nonstop daily videos. I encourage you to lock us in right now. But let's get back on topic. The pros and cons for Brock Bowers. So the route running, the speed, and the vision are excellent. This guy is a phenomenal athlete. He's deadly with the ball in his hands, which is why he's a yak nightmare. 8.7 yards in yards after catch. That was his average in 2023. I mean, that is stellar. The only thing is, like, there is kind of the discussion of, like, he doesn't have elite tight end size, so is he a true tight end? Like, is he more of just an offensive weapon? I've seen some of that chatter just on social media, seen it on the internet and stuff. And obviously not everyone's a draft expert, but I don't think that the size, I do think that the size is something to be concerned about a little bit. And he's also not a great blocker. He's not bad, but he's not a great blocker. And after Darnell Wright left Georgia through the draft last year, you saw how much he struggled in run blocking specifically. But let's dive into the depth chart to see specifically what you got going on. I mean, you have Juwan Johnson, who last year dealt with some health issues. He did have some good moments. 2022, there was definitely a lot more of those good moments. But Foster Moreau, everyone's going to remember that one drop he had against the Jags. That was terrible. It was really, really tough to have that go down. But at the end of the day, he can be a useful option for New Orleans, and he's on a multi-year deal. Taysom Hill, he's getting up there in age. However, he's still a really effective player, and he's still a really quality football player. But at the end of the day, my general take is if you're going to go and draft an offensive lineman, it has to be one of these top guys. And in my opinion, it's Joe Alt, Talisi Fuaga, or Olu Fashanu in no particular order. I mean, it's Joe Alt, Fashanu, Fuaga for me, but any of those three guys, you go and get them. Do not force the pick with the J.C. Latham. Do not force the pick with a Tyler Guyton or a Graham Barton or somebody else. I want the Saints to make the easy selection. If a run of offensive linemen and a run of quarterbacks goes, grab Brock Bowers. It's the easy pick. It's such an easy selection because he's going to bring you really, really good traits to an offense that really needs some help. And on top of that, this offensive line class is so deep, and you can go and get an impact player in the later rounds, and second round specifically, especially. But coming up next, let's dive into what New Orleans Saints fans are saying. I put out a post on my Twitter account, X, whatever you want to call it, and I wanted to see what you guys thought, and we have a lot of those posts here coming up in just a second. But before we get to that, got to give a big-time shout-out to Game Time for sponsoring today's video. Game Time is my favorite ticketing app because it's last-minute tickets, lowest price, guaranteed. And on top of that, the prices actually drop as the event gets closer. And with flash deals, zone deals, and all sorts of fun promos, Game Time is the best ticketing app. So if you use our promo code CHATSPORTS, you can get $20 off your first purchase, and you can go get tickets to LSU football. They already got seats available in Death Valley, or you can go check out tickets for the Saints games. We don't have the full schedule, but we have a list of the opponents. So if you know you want to go to a Saints-Falcons game, or you want to go to a Saints-Bucks game, then go get your tickets today. And on top of that, the Pelicans, they still got some games left, and they're trying to fight for an NBA playoff spot. So go root on the Pels. And another cool trait about this app is it's really user-friendly. You can see your seats from the app. You can see what your view is going to be, so you know walking in what to expect. And on top of that, they let you know when there's fun stadium promos like giveaways and all that kind of stuff. So download the Game Time app. Use promo code CHATSPORTS. That's code CHATSPORTS for $20 off. Terms do apply. Download the app. Use our promo code and get started today. Thank you, Game Time, for sponsoring today's video. All that information is in the comment section and description of this video. So let's get to Zach DeMar 11. He's saying that the Saints should definitely draft Brock Bowers if he's there, because he's the most skilled offensive player in the draft and has the potential to be the offensive player in the NFL in a couple of years if used correctly. So I think he's saying he has the ability to become an offensive player of the year in a few years if he's used it correctly. And I like a big key aspect of this argument. It has to be used correctly. You can't just throw Brock Bowers into any offense, into any system, and it's going to work. Like, you have to specifically cater to his skill set and allow him to cook the way that he can. I really like what Sub-Zero season, Zach DeMar, what you had to say, so I appreciate you for sharing your thoughts, brother. Who is that? Bunch of Florida Lee emojis. The Saints should draft Brock Bowers because he's a beast, and he would be a big playmaker for the offense. They shouldn't, though, because we have a needed offensive line, so we have time to pass the ball. I mean, I think that's a totally fair argument. If Derek Carr doesn't have anybody to throw the ball to, then this is a problem. But the Saints are in a situation where they have Chris Olave, they have A.T. Perry, they have Rashid Shaheed, they have Taysom Hill, they have Alvin Kamara, they have Juwan Johnson, they have Cedric Wilson. Like, there are players that can catch the ball. There are players who can make plays offensively. But if the O-line is not there and cannot give them time to create plays, that is where things will fall apart. The play calling last year was terrible. Like, I don't want to give any excuses to Pete Carmichael as to why the offense failed, but the O-line was exceptionally bad. Like, it was not a good. It was really, really not what you want to see in terms of the production. It wasn't the worst in the league by any means, but it wasn't anything special to go run home about other than really Eric McCoy. Now let's go to Alamo City. Go Seminole. Go Pels. Who dat AJ? The Saints should draft Brock Bowers because he's Ed McCaffrey in a Jimmy Graham body. Now, unfortunately, Brock Bowers and Jimmy Graham, they're not really that close in terms of the measurements. I love the idea of it, and I think it's really funny. Jimmy Graham is sitting at 6'7". Brock Bowers, not that quite that 6'4". So 275 versus 240 pounds. So I don't think it's Jimmy Graham's body, but in terms of the mentality, in terms of the dog, in terms of the athlete, in terms of the playmaking ability, maybe. But I don't think that they're really the same skill set. But who dat AJ, I really do appreciate you for sending in that tweet. Let's go to Jagger Drury. Derek Carr loves his tight ends, and in fact, the GOAT of tight end is itching near retirement age. So I'm thinking that he's meaning Taysom Hill is getting to the near of his retirement age, or Jimmy Graham. If he means Jimmy Graham, number 8, he's sailing across the world, or he's rowing across the ocean. So I don't think that Jimmy Graham's coming back, unfortunately. He put out a post that feels like it was his retirement. But if you're talking Taysom Hill, that is true. He's getting up there in the age column, so maybe you do want to go and bring in a guy that you can have be just an all-around offensive weapon. So Jagger also is a Raiders fan, so he does know about Derek Carr, and there is a fact. Derek Carr loves his tight ends. Hunter Bass, who knows? Hunter the Saints should not draft Brock Bowers. The tight end has not changed the team enough in the rookie season to use a first-round pick in a while. Plus, the Saints could pick up Theo Johnson on a day 3, and he is a stud. So I do think that this is actually kind of a good point by Hunter Bass. I like to go back and look at Kyle Pitts. I don't know whether or not the Falcons regret that pick, but Theo Johnson out of Penn State, I think, could be an intriguing option. He's a little bit closer to that Jimmy Graham build at 6'6". So maybe that is a guy that you could go and get in a later round. But Kyle Pitts, at least in terms of what we've seen so far, hasn't really made that big of an impact offensively for the Falcons. So I can see where the reservations are, and I can understand where the argument's coming in from Hunter Bass. So I appreciate you for replying to my tweet as well. Sam, the last one that we're going to get to, the Wolf. Oh, I don't know. Sam, we're going to read your tweet. We should draft Brock Bowers because he's a rare weapon. We can find a solid offensive tackle at number 45. Our offense needs identity. Now, there is an argument there. The offense last year had no identity. We weren't a high-flying offense. We weren't run the damn ball. We weren't ground and pound. We weren't quick screens. We weren't really anything. It was just kind of really very, very vanilla, very bland and boring. And Brock Bowers could give you or help you create an identity. And there are options at offensive tackle at 45. Heck, there are even options that you could trade some of those comp picks to try and move around and get an extra selection in like the 3rd or 4th round as well. But I appreciate all of you guys who replied to my tweet. I want you guys to let me know whether or not you would draft Brock Bowers in the 1st round. But on top of that, if you're excited for the draft, just give me a me in the comment section. Get rowdy, Dat Nation, and y'all stay golden. We'll see you next time.